me, Harmon, go ahead and tell me what's going on.
Okay, he's heating up the mold now, so that make sure that there's no moisture whatsoever in that when he pours.
So it's what you're getting, what we're all doing.
We're taking and we're smelting gold. We got an ounce in the furnace now, and we're getting ready to pour it into the mold there to make a Hershey Kiss.
Tell me about your furnace.
The furnace and things is the newest furnace out on the market now. It's made to where that you can use a microwave to take and do your cooking to smelt your gold. And now we're getting ready to take the furnace out of the microwave.
Put the whole full amount of plug
and getting ready to pour the button. Okay, we're ready now to take the furnace out of the microwave, and you can just use regular welding gloves on this. The actual furnace itself is not hot. The only thing that's hot is the plate, the ceramic plate that is in between the furnace layers there.
I'll tell you what is hot is that piece right there. This right here don't get hot. Boy, that piece right there.
So now he's going to take the top off, and you'll see how red that crucible is in there.
He is hot.
Now he's got to pour it pretty quick here because it'll cool down on him. There goes the pour. That gold's right in the bottom of that mold now. And we'll have to wait till it cools down just a little bit.
One thing you need to watch it. Sometimes this stuff, when it starts cooling, it'll start flying. It'll start popping. You don't want it. It's glass.
We're going to take and put this crucible over top of that because when it cools, it'll start popping. And there's so many people around, we're afraid that it'll pop. And maybe the glass might hit someone and burn them.
What you usually going to do, man? Yeah. This is going to do Doug's neck.
Yeah.
But I'm going to keep this hot.
We'll keep that from hitting somebody when that glass starts popping.
So you see how it works? The only reason it'll work is what this thing, it goes in this, the microwave has got nothing to do with it. You've got to have this right here to go in the microwave because you can't put metal in a microwave. But it will, you see, it will get it hot.
That'll Doug. We could probably go ahead and do Doug's and put it in there. Well, we can open that door and let it cool a little bit. Well, we got to wait an hour. We got to cook it for an hour. We can have it cooking.
So you're going to let this cook?
20 minutes.
The microwave?
Yeah.
Want that out of it?
Yeah, you can leave that out of it and let the microwave cool down.
I thought we didn't put that back in.
Now, if you listen real close, you'll hear this glass when it starts to cool because it's going to start popping down under there. We usually just step back when we're doing it up at the Lucky Strike. We usually just step back and let her pop.
It's got to cool. You'll see some gold coming on there a little bit. Hey, Herb.
How long does it take to cool?
It'll take about 10 minutes, and then we'll take and actually turn it over in about 10 minutes. We're going to turn it over, and we're going to knock that gold button out of there.
I'm going to take a picture of that.
And then we'll take this hammer, and we'll break the glass away from that gold button.
How long does it take to make the bottle?
An hour. Yeah.
Is that all right?
We left it in there for an hour and 10 minutes. Watch.
That place feels good. You don't feel it now.
I'm waving at Billy's taking pictures. I'm waving at Billy's taking pictures.
Microwave to make the furnace work properly and heat up. I've made these over the years and things for Ray over there. In fact, he's got a bunch of them.
Now that mold there, was that just
That's made of cast steel.
Cast steel.
Keep talking.
These are the ones I've made over the years for Ray. And this has been at the different shows and things here, the gold shows.
Okay.
That I've made and poured those for Ray. He's got a quarter, a half, and 3/4.
Okay.
The next
And you're
is an
doing
ounce.
You're
And we're doing an ounce today.
okay.
That's the way they got theirs, boy, it shines. Yeah. But you can take a brush, this stuff, it'll come off. Oh yeah. You just have to peck on it. It's glass.
So they're glass certificates. What do you do with that?
You can take and keep that glass and recrush it and reuse
Sorry about that.
No, we lost it.
Bill, where'd you go?
What's that?
All right. All right, Bill, I want you to.
These, I don't care for this flux.
Okay.
Somewhere around a half an ounce.
Bill, I want you, when you get done, I want you to come up here.
Right now in a minute.
Come up here and tell us about how you got this gold, where, when, and all of it.
I mean, looks about like a Hershey's Kiss.
Yeah, that's what we call it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got
Okay.
one.
I can't.
Now,
This is the first one that was ever done.
Doug, yeah.
That's
Doug, I want you to put it down there. I'm going to show you that. I want you to announce that it's Bill's gold, and he's been saved. And Bill, I'm going to turn to you, and you tell us.
And I'm going to present it.
Yeah, you're going to present it to Bill.
Okay.
Put it down in the.
Is this enough?
Got it. Okay. Go.
I'm Daniel Hostler. Happen to be the owner of this coin, which was minted in North Carolina in 1842 by a member of the Beckler family. The original Christopher Beckler was a German, came to the United States, as far as I know, in shortly after 1815. Stayed a couple of years in Philadelphia. He was a jeweler by trade, goldsmith, but then he moved because of the discovery of a great deal of gold in North Carolina, which was the first gold discovery in the continent. Came to North Carolina, had a jewelry shop. He was also a gunsmith. But then he decided, because at that time, people who found gold either had to just barter a pinch of gold for a loaf of bread or what have you, or they had to get their gold to Philadelphia to be minted at the government mint. That was the only mint in the United States. And he decided to help the local miners. So there were thousands of them around. I mean, there were over Brindletown, there were 6,000 miners at one time working. So he began minting a $2.50 coin and a $5 gold coin. Immediately, the U.S. government jumped on him. And so he proved to them that they checked him out, proved to them that he was actually putting a little more than $2.50 worth of gold in his $2.50 coin, and the same with his $5 coin. And so they allowed him to continue. Now, he never called himself, he never called it a mint. He called it an assay office, because he would, that was one of the performances that miners would bring in a piece of ore, and he would find out how much gold was actually, say, per pound or per ton or what have you. But then, he as I say, he started minting these coins. He died early in 1842. His son Augustus then began minting. And so this coin is actually, if you read it, you'll see it says A. Beckler, for Augustus Beckler, rather than his friend, his son Christopher, or his father Christopher. Augustus, though, died, committed suicide at the end of 1842, and a cousin, another Christopher, took over the mint. By that time, the U.S. government established a branch mint in Charlotte, but people still in this particular area wanted they wanted Beckler coins. And in fact, some of them would specify, if they were advertising land for sale or something like that, they would specify they wanted paid in Beckler gold. Heck with this government stuff. So that's the history of the Beckler family. They finally, the second Christopher stopped operations about 1852, and then packed up and moved to Spartanburg and opened a jewelry store. And later on, toward the end of his life, he moved to Charlotte. And descendants of him still live in Charlotte and are said to own 30 Beckler gold coins. They're quite rare, have become quite expensive. In fact, I saw a $5 gold piece that the man wanted $40,000 for it. But there aren't that many $5 gold pieces, Beckler gold pieces, around. And most of them are in safe deposit box someplace or another.
1877, Leopold II of Belgium. 1889, Wilhelm II of Germany.
Those were cast 100%.
Well, close to it. Probably 99. But it was
Yeah, we'll be right at 12. We got 2 more guys who are on their way.
sometime after 323 BC.
The coin I have is, what I've looked up on it was about 20.
Tell us while he was at it.
Right. Yes, I'm supposed to set it.
Yeah, yeah, you got to. Okay, we get up here a little bit and I'll introduce you gentlemen. Okay, thank you guys for being here about this. This is open panel discussion. Each person will give a little bit about what they're about, and then we'll have question and answer. Start down here. This is John Dysart of the old Dysertsville family, if you know where Dysertsville is. John's expertise is 21 years. He ran the Reed Gold Mine, and he's got a tremendous amount of experience about gold throughout North Carolina and the United States. So we're going to let him talk a little bit about what this area is about. Okay, and we have Doug McCormick. You would know him. Doug's the Lucky Strike Gold Mine. Last commercial mining operation here in the state was at his operation, and he ran it. So questions that you might have on that, address it to Doug, and he'll give a little bit about that. Michael Hargett. Michael grew up in Rutherford County. His dad owned the Beckler land back in 1951. He grew up in all the mines down in there. A recent acquaintance of ours. We're going to bring him on board and let him begin to tell his story about the history of the gold between McDowell, Rutherford County down in there.
Yeah, we were the downstream part of everything going on up here. We took advantage of that.
Okay. And this is Dan Hosler. He has in his hands the Beckler coin, and he'll tell you more about that in just a moment. So I'll tell you what I'd like to do. John, if you'll just start out and tell them a little bit about what you did, so it'll generate some questions a little bit later on. Let all 4 of the men talk a little bit about what they do, their history, then open the discussion for questions about those areas, okay? John?
I grew up here in just outside Old Fort on Highway 70, but I was the manager of Reed Gold Mine for almost 26 years, and because of that job, I studied and developed a background as far as the history of gold in the state of North Carolina, which started with Conrad Reed. He was 12 years old and he found the first nugget, period, that's documented in the United States, and it weighed 17 pounds. Only one problem, he used it as a doorstop for 3 years because he nor anybody in his family knew it was gold. His father took it to Fayetteville on a marketing trip, which is 100 miles from Concord, North Carolina, to Fayetteville. And there, a jeweler recognized it as gold and said, "Name your price." And that was in 1802. He got $3.50 for it, which was 1/10 of 1% of its real value. In 1802, the nugget would have been worth $3,600. With that story and with the fact that gold in North Carolina led the nation for 50 years, I was able to go to Colorado, Nevada, Georgia, California to explain that to everybody else who thought they were first That wasn't the case. It was here. And the gentleman sitting to my left knew my father. The pavement that you're parking on out there, tell you how well I grew up here. My father paved that asphalt out there in 1965. So, and yes, my family was one of the first families in Western North Carolina. So, history is my background. You got it in a short synopsis. Yours.
I'm Doug McCormick. Me and Liz is the owner of the Lucky Strike Gold Mine, and some of you might be familiar with it, down Bane Mountain, North Carolina. My background goes back into mining. I worked for 3 different mining companies down through about 40 years. The last big commercial mine was where the Lucky Strike is now. We had a plant there. Our production on the plant was 1,000 tons a day at the plant. I had 19 to about 23 employees down through the years. So if you come down, I can explain that and show you more about it, where the tone, where the surge pile, where all that is. That's my background. That's right there. We're right on Second Broad River, right above him, and I just met this fella just 2 weeks ago. Yeah, we went down and met him. He's telling us some real interesting stuff, so you'll love hearing him. But we have done a lot. You might have been out here. We've done a lot of testing, a lot of assaying, a lot of trying to figure out where it comes from. But I worked for the main office was in Minneapolis of the last commercial gold mine that operated in North Carolina. Their headquarters was Jewelmont in Minneapolis. That's who I worked for. They put up some money on the last plant. They put up $3 million. They invested $3 million to do that venture down there, and that was one of the companies. There was 2 companies of it. Was the Imperial Mining Company. They was the ones mining, and his Bane Mountain processing plant is the one I was over, and my job was to process it and ship the gold to Minneapolis. But that's a little bit of, like John said, that's a little bit of a short story of what I've done, what I'm about, and I've spent a long time trying to chase that yellow gold down. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Sven.
Well, thank you.
Your name again?
All right, my name is Mike Hargett. I live just over the county line in Rutherford County, and I have a farm just below the Lucky Strike. So I get some of the fines that he kind of ignores coming through my place.
Oh, yeah.
But I guess I'm here because I'm the grandson of George Washington Dieter. He was the superintendent of the Wolverine Mining Company that was located just north of Ruth, North Carolina. This was an open pit mining operation with shaft mine access for a vein of gold that went across Rutherford County, probably extends up this way also to Vane Mountain. But the Wolverine Mining Company was responsible for a very significant operation there until the late 1920s. And that's when they shut down. It was just too dangerous with the soft rock that we had in that area. But I grew up, and we were talking before we gathered here a moment ago, the fact that my grandfather made sure that all of us were pretty good at panning. And we hated it because it took a lot of time, and we had a lot of other things we'd rather be doing. And I'm sure he was not doing that so we could have a livelihood. He's doing that so he could occupy us and keep us out of trouble. So as such, we all have an appreciation for that, but today the thing I look back on is the stories and the legacy that he shared with us about the gold mining. Eventually it was such that my father owned the part of the property for that mine, the property that had all the shaft pits on it, and there's a few of those left. Many of those have been filled in. But it's an interesting combination of just brute labor for getting that gold out of the ground, and secondly, the technology that was emerging in the 1800s to be applied. Some of the first applications of some of the gold mining technology in the world was right here in North Carolina, and not without some environmental penalty and without some loss of life associated with that. But it is a fascinating history. My historical story relating back to the Reed discovery, it actually goes back before that as to why people were here in this part of the United States. The first reports of gold here were from Spanish explorers. The Spanish sent companies of people into this area to occupy the area temporarily, and we at that time had forts that were in western North Carolina. Three forts of San Juan, San Cristos, I don't remember the name of the third fort, but those forts were located east of here. And today they're excavating one of the forts that they have discovered in Catawba County. But the forts were not permanent, and those soldiers went back to report to their commanders and eventually back to the King of England of the gold that they had found in this area. This became a little bit of a draw to bring people into the area so they could seek their fortune in the wilderness of America. And as they did that, they exchanged that gold. That became their trading medium for supplies and for needs that they would have with the ships that would bring resources from Europe. That's how the Europeans knew that there was gold here. It showed up in the trade streams. It was bartered for the necessities that people had in this area. Now, eventually, of course, the Spanish lost this area to the English. And one of the interesting stories that I came across was the explanation, which is a little bit flippant, from King George III. Cornwallis, when he was charged with the responsibility for the colonial armies, asked King George, why do you want the Carolinas? He says, New England is emerging as an industrial center. There's significant resources in the mid-Atlantic. And there's tar and turpentine down in Georgia. Why do you want the Carolinas? And his answer was, I want the gold and I want the wine. Now, North Carolina was a very significant wine producer for the world in the eastern part of the state. But the gold was known to him. He knew it was here. He did not have control of it, but he wanted that gold. And there's enough of it flowing from this area that he knew it was something that would benefit his kingdom. So that history of how that came about, that's the intriguing part of me. And I agree that gold was never documented, and certainly would be impossible to figure out how many ounces came out of this area. But there was definitely a flow of gold coming from this area that attracted a lot of people to this area. We have a significant heritage. We have a significant legacy that I am quite interested in spreading and sharing with a lot of people as I find more and more about that. And that is a relatively modern heritage. I recently was reviewing an autobiography by Dr. Marshburn, who was down in the Mount Vernon area of Rutherford County. And at that time, there was a significant barrier. Up until just at the turn of the 20th century, we did not have good roads from the east up into the mountains here. It was very difficult to get up the mountain. The population from this area came from the north and the west into this area to populate. So that was kind of a natural barrier. But one of the interesting stories that Dr. Marshburn tells is that if a young man wanted to take a bride, he had to prove that he was a good worker. He had to prove that he could support her. And one of the tests that they gave him was they said, okay, you go pan enough gold for a gold band, and then we'll talk about whether or not you can marry my daughter. That was the test. And most of those young men, according to Dr. Marshburn, went up to South Mountain, up on the creek, up on the top of South Mountain, to pan for gold until they got enough that they could get away. So,
were the Cherokee this far east to assist?
I don't really know.
Yes.
Cherokee was here. Good thing, the tourists here, you've not been here before. Go right here at the mouth. There's that big arrowhead, you might notice, there's a plaque there. It'll even tell you the date and stuff. I don't remember the date now. Cherokee Indians made that record. But we'll probably get you. That's really interesting.
History of gold has been around for 4,000 years, and he's alluding to Spanish. Sir Walter Raleigh, being English, wanted to convince Queen Elizabeth to come to this country. Why? because the Spanish had already found that there was gold here, and there was gold in Mexico, in Central America. And so there were 3 major excavations by Sir Walter Raleigh to get an established colony. Where? In North Carolina. Man, it's called the Lost Colony. They were there, and they disappeared. That was in the 1500s, 1584 to be exact. 1584, no gold until 1799, but it was floating around. It was around, had been around for hundreds of years. That's why we were established. That's come to the New World. That's the whole thing that Michael's talking about. People came here looking for gold, to be richer than they were before. And nothing happened until the key word that I said, documented. And he used it to hold the door open for 3 years because nobody recognized it. Okay? Then the first rush of new people came in because of that discovery. There were 300 gold mines in the state of North Carolina. 300. 150 in Virginia. 500 in Georgia. All prior to 1900. That started the influx of people to this state, period.
Primarily English?
Oh, no, German. Everybody.
Everybody. Okay.
Everybody.
All right.
Anybody that wasn't of privilege, that wanted to earn their fortune, had this promise of the new land, and hey, there's gold. You can work your way, and there was enough to sustain the population. I mean, the agricultural production of this area was not at all significant. It was the gold. It was the fine gold that they were getting. Just to tie the numbers together, these forts that I referred to are in the circa 1540. So by the time they were here, did their exploration, went back, reported, throughout Europe, the word spread quickly. There's bounty here. And that drew the population. The population that came in was not the most sophisticated, again, privileged people of Europe. These were people that didn't have a stake anywhere else, and I can earn my fortune because I've got a strong back. I'll go to that area and be equal to everybody else. A lot of the foundation of our nation here with these people seeking opportunity and finding it here in the mountains.
You know why this is Old Fort? This was the furthest point west in 1776. Old Fort was the western frontier of North Carolina. They're doing an archaeological excavation for this one in Catawba County. This was a town with lots of concrete and lots of... It's not a very big town, never was. I grew up here. But they never were able to locate exactly where the fort was. Why? Because it's a long structure. Gone. In 1756, it was in Statesville, was the furthest point of the English frontier, okay? English frontier in the state. 20 years later, it was here. That's why this is called Old Fort, because this was the furthest point and it had the fort here. Cannot find exactly where it was.
And talking about Michael, if you down there where we were, we got one club member I see in here with us, but you can see, if you go, and Daniel, if you go over to the 100 acres we've got leased, that is old mining property. And you go look at them tailing piles, and I said, man, how did them people with a pick and a shovel, how did they do that? They'd dig ditches, they'd tailing piles. Well, it'd take me weeks to do it with a track hoe. I mean, they worked. They bound had to get that gold fixed. I mean, it's evidence. You can see it right there. Yeah.
I was told that was that Chinese miners in there at one time?
What I was told was slave.
Okay.
Slave.
19.
Jim Haney. That's Jim Haney's property. But the slave was. That's Brackett town.
Yeah.
The Bracketts. They owned slaves back in them days. And this is, this is the story that was told me. Henry Sprouse, this is the one that told me. I've got him on film. We used to do some filming and put it in archives, the club archives. But he said in the summertime they was too busy to go mine. They would take them and they made them kosher, just like Michael said. They had to eat. If they eat, they had to grow what they eat. They had to raise their pigs or cows, and they had to feed the hay, the corn, stuff to feed. But when they laid the crops by, in the fall and the winter, they would send the slaves down in there where we dig now. They send them in there and make them gold mine. And
And the stories, Henry told me, he said they would tell whatever slaves they sent it, and they called that the swamps at that time. This is the word he used. They would send the slaves to the swamps, and they would tell the slaves, if you don't bring the fruit jar gold back home at supper time, don't come home. Now this is what he told me, but that's probably a story. They probably went home because they had to eat, and they really thought, a lot of them good slave owners, they thought a lot of their slaves, but that was some stories. And Henry told me that his dad, he seen fruit jars of gold, and like he said, they would trade the Carson house up here. If David's out there and Jim, if another thing that you want to see and learn about history, go to the Carson house down here. Colonel Carson, he had a part in the gold mine. The Carson house, and a lot of that's done right there, it was done off of Bane Mountain and the South Mountain Range. There's history down there they've got that ties them with the gold mining down in Bane Mountain in that area. So it all just ties together, you know.
That made a lot of money, over $1 million in that time, which today would be a lot more than that.
Well, that was the same thing at the Rico mine, right? That they would farm in the summer and mine in the winter because they couldn't quit farming.
He was a
They had the
farmer
farmer
first and
mentality,
last.
right?
He was a farmer first and
Yeah.
last.
And then the gold mining came second.
And his family could not convince him to go underground. It's also the first, big placer mining, and then he didn't. There he had plenty of slaves. Why spend more money? And Doug and I could talk to you about technical advances. He just demonstrated out there pouring a button of gold, which they used to do in an assay, which would take a whole lot longer than he did it just an hour ago. And we've got another one we've got to pour here momentarily.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's you risking life and limb going underground.
Yeah, I want
Like
Dan
you're wading in that water digging it in this underground.
I want Dan to talk about the reason why the Beckler Mint came here, which speaks to how much gold was coming out of this area. I mean, if you have a mint, the usual logic is you want to put it in a center of commerce. This is not the center of commerce here at the foot of the mountain. If you wanted a center of commerce, you would have gone to Charlotte. There's already a mint there, but they didn't. They went to the Beckler Mint. You want to speak a little bit about the Beckler Mint and Christopher and Augustus?
Yeah. Well, now, as far as I'm concerned, of course, I'm the odd man out. You know by my dialect that I'm not in Parkhill. I'm an exile from Ohio. Actually, though, I have lived more than half my life in North Carolina, but that's just a chance. That's just the way that the cards fell. No, I'm a Buckeye, and despite what trouble Jim Tressel has gotten into, I'm still a faithful Ohio State football fan. Graduated from Ohio State in 1948. I received a doctorate in history from the University of Wisconsin in 1955. I spent 20 years in the classroom in a number of different colleges. That career came to an end, and I did a little bit of this and that and the other thing. I spent 10 years with the H&R Block franchise. I spent another 10 years running a coin laundry, simply because I got tired of looking at other people's numbers. And then I retired, and along the line, after that retirement, I got interested in panning for gold, mainly as part of a short course that was given at Isothermal Community College one summer. And so that's my connection with gold. As far as my family was concerned, most of them were German peasants who came to America and continued farming. Settled first in Pennsylvania, and when the farm wore out there and the War of 1812 was over, my ancestor moved to Ohio. Later on, some of his children moved to Indiana and wore out farms there, and moved to Illinois and wore out farms there, and moved to Iowa. That was the pattern, particularly for the Pennsylvania Dutch. Now, I realize that there, of course, there was also a stream that came down the Great Valley of Virginia, and you get all the Germans in this part of North Carolina. The Dellingers, the Spanglers, the Lutzes. Interestingly enough, in an area in Ohio where my people lived, there were also Lutzes and Spanglers. In some cases, some of the sons came south and some of the sons just went straight west.
You have something in your hand that kind of puts together all of what these guys are talking about.
That's right. I was just giving my background because I'm not... The only reason I bought this was I had got to collecting a few gold coins. And one day down at the Lucky Strike, a fellow wandered in, didn't know him from Adam, and he said, I've got a Beckler coin for sale. Told me how much it was, and I said, well, let me think about it. So I went home and scratched up some money and sold some fine gold and sold a couple of existing gold coins that I had and met his price and became the owner of a Beckler coin. This is a $1 coin minted in the Beckler Mint in 1842. Now the Beckler Mint had been established, well, it wasn't a mint, he called it an assay office, because only the government had mints then. The first Beckler was a man named Christopher Beckler. He was born in Germany, came to the United States, lived a couple of years in Philadelphia, then decided to come south. Of course, gold had been discovered down here. He was a goldsmith, a jeweler, and a gunsmith. He got in the area, and of course there was no mint here. Charlotte Mint had not been formed. If you wanted your money coined, your gold, you had to send it or take it to Philadelphia. That was the only mint in the country. That was an awful trip. There were bandits all along the road. There were people who would cut your throat for a packet of gold. And so Beckler saw a need, and he developed a process to work with the local miners. As I say, they had no place to take it. They were bartering gold here. You went to the grocery store to get some salt, since you couldn't dig that out of the ground. You paid for your salt with gold dust, nuggets. Well, as I say, he saw a need, and so he made the process work. He would take the gold, raw gold, he would refine it, he would turn it into coins. He had the machinery, he made the machinery himself to do it. And he became tremendously popular. There have been various estimates about how much gold he minted, coin. Anywhere from $2.5 million to $4.5 million in gold. And this was in a time when gold was $10 an ounce. So that was a lot of gold. Now Christopher ran into trouble as soon as he started turning out coins. He did a $2.5 coin and a $5 coin. And the U.S. government stomped on him. They came in and they were going to take him apart. They ran all kinds of tests and they discovered that he actually was putting a little more money, a little more gold in that $2.5. Well, he maybe putting $2.55 or $2.60 in that $2.5 coin. And the same with his $5 coin. So they said, well, he's performing a useful purpose. He's not cheating anybody. He kept his rates low, a very small percentage on the gold that he refined and a very small percentage on the coins that he passed out. And everything was hunky-dory. And he continued. However, because of the need, eventually they did establish a mint in Charlotte, a branch mint in Charlotte.
Okay, we got a couple of gentlemen that's time is right on time to go and pour the remaining. What are you going to do, Doug?
I'm going to pour some gold out here. It's time right now, but you can excuse me or
okay. So y'all, okay, here's the
And then you just talk,
All right,
and when
let's
we
do
get
this.
through,
Let's
if
go
you
ahead.
still wanna
This
ask
is
a question.
good. Let's break this up, you guys. You know Michael, Daniel, Doug, and John, okay? You see them? Yeah. Walk up to them and ask them the questions, okay?
We can come back in here after we get through, if someone wants to talk, I wanna mention Daniel, right here, as one of the charter members of this club right here.
All right.
And we appreciate Daniel and what all he's helping us with. But I've gotta go for a little bit of gold.
I'm gonna go watch it for a gold.
It looks like a squirrel. That's a big, big squirrel. That's a raccoon. Yeah. You say raccoon?
Raccoon.
Very good. It's what?
It stands on wood.
Yeah, but it's standing on wood. Because raccoons like to eat fish. Don't you like fish?
These are some of the stones
No? Okay.
that Wayne has cut.
Yeah.
Right there. What's that?
Well, he's cut quite a few for me,
What's a
Yeah.
but I found some very nice things in buckets up at Broad River.
Sarah. Don't mess with the phone, he can get real mean. Something you can do is drive a city living in the first time. My baby, she's a Chippewa, she's because of mine. She'll be back alone, Billy Cheeks is my papa. He gets his orders from my mama, who makes him both alive. Find me in my way. Your heart got old like a glass of wine. I remember the medicine man, he got running water in his hand. Struck me around by my headbands, and I went through some time. Well, I'm in there now, I'll have turkey and chuck all my baby. My buffalo grease, I've got them spinning in line. I'm Indian outlaw, have turkey and choctaw. My baby, she's a Chippewa, she's fun all the time.
setting the girdle now?
Actually, what we do is we take a raw. Okay. We take a raw stone, which I don't have one to show you here right now, but then we shape it into a certain shape, depending on what the stone is. And then we take it through 2 or 3 stages of cutting to get what we call the facets. And that's what I'm doing now. And once all the facets are cut, then we polish each and every facet, and that's when they become a gemstone. We might want to see a finished one over there. Get a colored one so it shows up good. And those are rubies there. That's the finished cut after we're through. That center one there appraised for $14,000.
Okay, now tell me about the machine.
Okay, this machine here is called a Patriot. It's made by Omni. This is one of your better machines because it has digital readout, and it will actually tell you by the digital readout when the stone is cut to the actual angle that you set the machine at. Like I'm trying to get this one cut down to exactly 90.0, and it's at 90.1 now, so I got to take it down 1 more thousandths of an inch for it to be perfect at that point.
Wow, who painted these pictures?
They actually will start out like, I can move this one around and show you. This one's it's still hitting at 90.1. So we got pretty close cuts on it. But I'm actually taking them down to where it reads 90.0. Once it starts, it'll start flickering like that, and then when it finally hits 90.0, it's a finished cut at that point. So, and then we'll point and do it all over again. And that's the same way the stone's polished, identical. Rotate it around each and every cut to where it actually polishes the stone. And that way you can see inside the stone. Light penetrates the top, rattles around inside and comes back out. That's called fire or the flash of any stone. And if the angles aren't set perfect like this, then you lose the light. It just looks like a clear piece of glass at that point. So the angles are very critical in cutting any gemstone so that it sparkles and flashes.
Oh, he got the
I haven't found the real reason why they moved this.
Yeah. But I don't think I'm gonna get that without those shadows coming back down. No, I think it's a great place. You know, it's definitely cooler and it's easier to find. And it looks like all your signs stayed up, Dawn.
And it looks like old mining place.
It does, and you can definitely see that nugget when you're coming down the road. You know, so I think if you can just hang in there and get established, and you know, now that I know what I'm doing with the Tweety thing,
You're doing good. You've got all kinds of papers here today.
I did a bunch of examples. That works.
Yeah.
Now that works. And there's some.
We're watching for you.
Is that one of Liz's granddaughters there? I didn't see her.
The hours are running quicker.
Was it caught in an eddy or something?
We'll take the dress. You're not scared of the water.
Greening.
I've been in the creek all day.
Okay. Here comes the ball. Yep.
Okay, watch and see if they get caught anywhere.
Is that your brother?